You step into an elevator. It starts going down fast. What would happen if you jumped right when it started going down? Would the ceiling hit your head? Ouch. Do you stay suspended in the air while the elevator plummets down? Let's examine the elevator problem one step at a time. First, consider a scale. You know, the kind of scale you weigh yourself on. When you step on a scale to weigh yourself, there are two forces involved. One, gravity pulls you down. Two, the scale pushes you up. What? You didn't know a scale could push? Of course it can. If it didn't push up on you, you would go crashing through the floor. This upward push is called the normal force. And yes, it is normally there. Since you're just standing there on the scale, you're not moving. Therefore, you're not accelerating. Newton's second law of motion, net force equals mass times acceleration, tells us that if the acceleration equals 0, the net force must equal 0, which means that the force of gravity pulling you down must be equal to the force of the scale pushing you up. Now let's suppose you're standing on that scale in an elevator. At first, the elevator is standing still, so you and the scale are standing still. The two forces on you are equal and opposite. Well, you can read how hard the scale is pushing by looking at it. We call that your weight. Then the elevator starts falling down. You and the scale are in the elevator, so you are falling down too, faster and faster. That means you are accelerating downward. Now there is a net force in the same direction as the acceleration, down. Since gravity hasn't changed, that must mean the scale isn't pushing up as hard. So the scale is reading a smaller number. The faster the elevator accelerates, the less the scale pushes up. But if you jumped, would you stop falling? Would the elevator hit your head? Well, what's pulling the elevator down? Gravity. Is gravity pulling on you? Of course. So your relative position in the elevator will stay the same. The ceiling will only hit you if you can jump up to the ceiling. Now consider what would happen if the elevator accelerated upward. And even more frightening, if someone snuck in and cut the cable holding the elevator, what would happen then? Think about it.
All right. The first question we need to discuss is identify what your team thinks which contributes most to the effectiveness and the appeal of the lesson.
I liked the animation. It was cute. It was relative. I think it was interesting to see the characters. I mean, you throw a character into any kind of lesson or advertisement or whatever, and you're gonna get people's attention, and they're gonna pay more attention than if it was a teacher sitting up there speaking to the crowd. Um, I just liked how the use of animation allowed also to be able to visualize the concepts that she was trying to describe. It helped me better understand what was going on.
I agree with you. I do love the animation. I also like that she used graphic like arrows pointing down. How the gravity was bigger, she made the arrow bigger, opposed to the normal force pulling up, and it made it smaller, so you could kind of tell that it was offsetting each other.
And she also put that verbal component in the written aspect going along with those signs. I like that.
What I have is that the author of the video used just to use the technology to teach the lessons, a good approach to engage the students or the audience. She examines the concepts one step at a time. This incorporates chunking and sequencing in her lesson, and there's great transition from the scale example that she uses, which is like a real-world example students can have prior knowledge about. That and she takes them right back to the elevator lesson.
Yeah, I agree. Does anybody have anything else to add?
No, I just like the way Jeffrey just referenced it back to real world and how kids all get in the elevator and jump up. So I like that.
Well, the target, she had something regarding the target learners in this lesson, and it was never directly stated by the author of the video, but I posited that it looked like it would have been for a middle school science class maybe, and it could be used. There was a scale, you know, it could be a 4 in the level of difficulty, with 5 being the most difficult, but because she used such creative technology and related it back to students' prior knowledge, I think that really probably dropped it down and made the lesson a lot easier for her to use.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like the example of, you know, the jumping up in the elevator. I mean, I'm a 33-year-old male, and I still have the urge to jump up when the elevator's going down. So by having that kind of, you know, experience and that reference, you know, and her referencing that kind of situation, it kind of made it relative to me as well. So I guess, you know, that's a situation like you were stating that, you know, the kids could associate with, because what kid doesn't want to jump up in an elevator?
Mm-hmm. And she did a really good job of saying, like, what if questions, what if this happens, and let's examine and break it down and do one thing at a time, not, you know, got to do little pieces at a time and put it all together.
Right.
Right.
All right, we'll go on to question number 2. For each tactic you identify, think up a different way that the tactic could have been implemented and discuss it. For example, should wiki, blog, video, or any multimedia instruction be implemented?
Well, I guess we should start off by first identifying the individual concepts or tactics that we view in this video. And then the ones that we can't find, then we can probably add examples of how it could be done better.
Yes, I agree.
So the first thing that I notice is, you know, right when the video starts, you know, it's not the full concept. It's a generality. It's basically referencing or allowing the viewer to reference their schema of information, their prior knowledge of information, just from the idea of that experience that they've had. I think that was the example of a generality that began the prototyping of this concept classification. Do you all agree with that?
Yes, and I'm sure she got the idea. I'm sure a lot of kids, you know, she probably had them brainstorm together about, you know, what are some ideas or pre-notion, you know, that you guys think happened, and to kind of start in that way, get them engaged and, you know, have them really excited about the lesson.
Yeah, she probably front loading, I think is what it's called, you know, gave them an idea of what's going on before she introduced that lesson. Going on what Ryan said, the concepts that I found here were gravity versus normal force, and I think that both of these concepts are generalities, and what I have for the different ways the tactics could have been used for the first tactic that I identified. The author already used engaging video, so she used some technology that kids are used to. So upon first thinking about it, I figured that doesn't really need to be changed. But then the only thing I thought about a little further, and the only thing else she could do to change it is maybe make it interactive for students, because they like that. For the other tactic that I identified, she used chunking and sequencing, laid it out step by step. I thought that was good.
Yeah, scaffolding was there as well.
scaffolding, and the author, I think, could have gone further after that and used a hands-on collaborative thing, and maybe each chunk could be a sub-lesson where the kids are involved in hands-on, and that'll reinforce the concepts or schema what they picked up in the video. And
Yeah, I think she could have also, to kind of help some students that are visual learners too, maybe have the actual text of what she's saying appear for those students that really need to see it and help connect to what they were watching.
But she did incorporate the equation. I did like that.
Yeah, she did. I just figure, like, you know, just full text of what she was saying, especially for any of those students that she would have with disabilities that would have challenges with that as well.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing I just wanted to add was I liked, like, Brian was saying about the generalities. She covered gravity and force and acceleration and mass and weight, but yet made it in such a simplistic presentation that even your struggling learners, I think, can better understand that higher level concept.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing that I think is missing from this is I don't remember seeing any type of procedure or any type of I mean, it was definitely an informative. It was definitely to inform the viewer, but there wasn't any type of task that was being completed. There wasn't any type of procedure being learned. I mean, this was definitely a prior chunk to a bigger lesson, a bigger, accomplished goal. So that's the one thing I did not notice in there. Maybe a little bit of a hint or something of that type of the end goal might have been good in this video to kind of associate all the lessons. I'm assuming this is just a piece of many different videos of a bigger learning goal. So I would assume that it would kind of have some type of information to relate it back to that.
Yeah, it might have been good at the end for her to say, we're going to use all this information and now connect it and create this project or do this, just to kind of let us. But it was definitely an informational or introduction to a topic area, but it was definitely targeting higher level. It had, was able for everyone to be able to comprehend what was going on.
Right. We can only assume that she was going to tie that in with maybe some lessons down the road that are more hands-on, and that she could see if there was a transfer of learning. And plus, it would give her an opportunity to evaluate the students to see where they're at, if they got the concepts that were presented in the lesson, and so forth.
Right, and that would allow the feedback tactic that is a part of this as well. But the one thing I noticed is when I was looking at the figure 3.1, the particulars and the generalities, the only really either is descriptive or productive. In this case, it was only descriptive. It just talked about the facts, the information, the examples, the instances, and the concepts. It didn't go into, it went into a little bit of the rules, and it went into the principles, but there was no procedures. So I think, the productive side of the particulars and generalities should have been focused a little bit more on.
Yeah. And she could have also maybe created a blog to go with it down below for students to respond with their feedback to it, or other people to comment, ask questions, things like that, give their input, things to change or make better, or to add to it. Anybody have anything else to add to that question?
Yeah, the other tactic I thought she put in there was that transition was really excellent. Again, after the video is shown, the different situations to be set up to describe each chunk of the broader concept thought, and the students can then divide. I would posit that they could divide into subgroups and collaborate and so forth. But she went from the scale back into the elevator thing, and I thought that was a good transition.
Yeah, I agree. All right, the last question, it says we need to refer to figure 3.1, the kinds of knowledge. How does each tactic apply to the particulars and generalities based on the type of knowledge your team identified? And I know we've talked a little bit about this.
My bad.
Yeah. Does anybody have anything else to expand upon that?
Ryan did a great job.
Sorry about that.
No, I thought it was good.
I had I'll go. I had like for the particular the productive knowledge. If you're on a scale in an elevator moving downwards, the scale will start to read less for your weight. I think that's a particular. For the descriptive knowledge, I noticed three things. If you're just standing on the scale, not moving, that's one instance. I think that's a particular. The other one, Newton's second law of motion, net force equals mass times acceleration. That's a particular or a fact.
Would that be a principle?
It could be, yeah.
Yeah, it could go either way, kind of.
Yeah. I think it could transfer over. And then the third thing, force of gravity pulling you down is equal to the force of the scale pushing you up. I think that's that could be a generality or it could be particular.
Yeah.
It looks like it would fall under, since it's an example of one of the specific elements of that topic, I think it would be a descriptive particular.
Yeah, because it is a really good example of that.
Well, I mean, it also falls under, I guess it would be an instance as well of the productive principles or the productive particulars as well.
Yeah, several of the things that she's done seem to overlap between whether they're,
That just confuses me, but yeah. So let's see. Does anybody else have anything else to say?
I thought that was really good.
I don't. I think we've covered it all.
Yeah, I think we covered everything.
Okay, awesome.